What's going on, DZ Team? It's Z here. Welcome back to another video. We're going to be talking about 3 tips coming from an Artic airborne unit that I was the only Artic airborne unit in the Army, and going over some cold weather tips now that temperatures are freezing here in Texas and stuff like that. So we're just going to jump right into it. So without further ado, let's go. All right. So first things first, guys, we're going to be talking about first tip of the day is hydration. So make sure you are hydrating even though you might not feel like you're thirsty. There was one time when I was in Alaska, and in my unit, we were out in the field training for about a week or so, and a guy decided, and it was really cold weather, a guy never felt the need to hydrate for water. He never felt dehydrated. So he would drink Monsters all the time because we were out in the field, and you need to stay up, and so we would take stuff like that, right? So he decided that he would just drink Monsters, and he bought a lot of them, and he never really drank water. He took a sip here and there, but at best, that's that. So one day we woke up in the morning and he began to vomit profusely. It was like a yellow color, and sorry for the graphics, but this is just how I remember it. He was like a yellow color. He had a headache. He just felt nauseous and sick and just didn't feel well. Come to find out, he never drank water. He sipped it, but he never drank water. So dehydration in cold weather is very common because you don't feel the need to drink water, because water, you perceive it as cold. Hydrating cools you off. Nobody wants to do that in the Arctic weather, but it's a must because you will dehydrate really fast. Moving on to our next tip of the day is contact frostbite. So if you're unsure what that means, it is basically when you touch something, boom, immediately instant frostbite. Now, it doesn't get as severe as like your whole hand turning that way. It can if you hold it there long enough, but it's enough to burn your hand. So what happens there, and it will begin to turn your hand black if it's that cold. So what you need to do is, if there's any metal piece or something that can reach cold enough temperatures, is put a base layer between your hand or whatever you're trying to touch that object with, between you and it. So if it is a door handle, the next to your door handle that has been sitting outside in freezing temperatures, put a base layer. If you don't have gloves on you, use a long sleeve or a piece of your shirt, grab the door handle and turn it. This is preventing you from getting that contact frostbite. So again, if you're trying to get to a building or something like that, make sure you prepare yourself with some gloves or a base layer that you can use, like a t-shirt, be able to grab the door handle, twist it, whatever it is, and be able to carry on, right? So contact frostbite. We also have to think about the firearms industry, right? Because we are law-abiding citizens carrying guns. So a lot of guns are made out of polymer plastic and metal. So if you're in a gunfight and you're trying to operate and your gun's been outside or been sitting in a cold environment, or you've been outside for a while and so is your gun, and it hasn't been well insulated to your body, it hasn't been concealed carry, you've been outside for whatever reason, right? And you decided to show the world that you're carrying a gun or using a rifle, and it's been sitting, obviously you can't conceal carry a rifle unless you got it in a bag, and you've souped it out for that way, your gun's gonna be cold. Grab gloves. Get something to insulate between you and your rifle. Your rifle or your firearm can give you contact frostbite. Keep that in mind. So going over the first two, recapping real quick, hydrate in cold weather. You might not feel like you need to, do it anyways. Second one, contact frostbite. Creating a layer between you and a metal object will save your life. In a nutshell, save your limbs. We'll say that. Okay, moving on to the third and final tip of today is your clothing choice. So as you can see, I'm wearing a long sleeve. There's 2 different colors, and I'm wearing a short sleeve. And in the beginning of this video, I had a beanie on. So how we normally do this, and how I normally like to plan it, coming from the Arctic unit and stuff that I've learned there, is in cold weather like that, whether it be so windy that it feels like it is almost freezing temperatures, or if it is freezing temperatures outside, I want something to insulate heat, right? So a beanie is a fleece cap, which we call this, is just fleece beanie, get a good one that insulates the heat coming out from my head. So your heat comes out from your head and your feet, right? So insulate it with a beanie every time you go outside. And if there's a wind chill, it helps protect you from the wind and your skin. Drying it out, making it like crackly and drying, and make your skin hurt and stuff like that, it's not good. A windburn is what that's called. So we don't want any of that. So insulate you Again, put a beanie on if it gets cold outside or feels like freezing temperatures, insulate that heat. As well as making sure you're wearing the proper stuff when you go outside. A lot of people like to wear so much clothing that when they go outside, they don't feel the cold at all. And it's super warm and toasty, and you just want to sit there all day. You can be outside all day because you're not cold at all. You don't feel the cold at all, which might seem like a good idea, but it's not. Here's why. So if you go outside and you have all that stuff on, you have layers and layers and layers, and it's so warm that you don't feel anything outside, you begin to sweat in your garments. And when you begin to sweat, you might not feel that you're sweating because you have so much stuff on. Now you're especially if you're wearing cotton as well, it begins to go into your fabric. When you sweat, it goes into what you're wearing, what it touches the most. Now if it gets super saturated, it goes into the next layer and the next layer, right? So if you're sweating in your garments and you don't feel it, the moment you begin to take that off and it goes out to the cold weather, it begins to start freezing. That death clock starts to come because now you're starting off of, okay, now my layers are starting to freeze. I can't use them anymore. So now you're gonna have to strip off layers. Not to also say that once you wear all that stuff, now you're climatizing your body to adapt to that warmth. So you're now, when you take layers off because they're getting damp or whatever, now you're gonna automatically set yourself up for failure because your body climatized to what you wore. So when you go outside and you went out to the cold weather, your body kind of knew it was cold, but it was climatized to the temperature you regulated with all the layers. So you're two double whammies. Hopefully that makes sense a little bit. Now going on into how you should properly dress for it and how to figure out how to dress for cold weather. So what I like to do is, as you can see here, I have a base layer. And I normally like to wear some sort of dry fit to pull moisture away from my body. I don't want to sweat into garments and I don't want to be a sweaty body when I go outside, because then death clock starts to freeze, right? Next, I want to have another layer over, whether if it's too cold and it's like in the negatives, I'll wear a long sleeve underneath the a long sleeve over the long sleeve, and then a jacket. Depending on if it's that cold and I feel the need to do that. So you're gonna kind of have to play with it once you step outside and know your environment. But today it's about 20 degrees Fahrenheit, it's a little cold, so I'm wearing a dry fit long sleeve, short sleeve shirt. When I go outside and it has a wind chill, I'm putting on a beanie and putting on just a somewhat athletic jacket. It is not too heavy, but it's not too light. So I go out there and my body knows that it's cold. I feel like it is cold outside, but it is not cold enough to where I can't do stuff, or I'm miserable or uncomfortable. It is cold enough to where I'm aware that it's cold, but not cold enough again to where that I'm uncomfortable and I can't stay out there for longer periods of time, right? So keep that in mind when you're dressing for clothes. That's what you want to look for. Something that is operational for you, that you know it's cold. You can feel that it's cold, but not so much so that you can't operate, right? And if it is, you might need to layer up a little bit more. Also, caveat to this, if you are wearing boots, wearing long socks, and you're out in the field hiking for long periods of time, make sure to change your socks. Make sure to change stuff like that, because your feet will sweat even in cold weather. And you're wearing boots, it's insulating all that heat. And the moment you take them off, right, it's gonna get all nasty. So make sure you have dry clothes at all times. Cotton kills in the cold. In freezing temperatures, cotton will kill because it absorbs moisture, if not from you and your body, from the outside. Or if you fall into some snow or some ice, now that cotton absorbed it, even if it was frozen. So keep that in mind. So to quickly recap over all the topics we went over, is to hydrate. You might not feel like you need to in the Arctic time, but you need to hydrate anyways. If you feel like you don't need to drink water, drink water. And then contact frostbite for our second point. So when you touch a layer that is cold enough, you can get contact frostbite and burn your hand essentially, or your limb, or whatever you're touching it with. So make sure you have a layer in between you and whatever you're about to touch. The thicker the layer, the better. Moving on to the last and final tip was your clothing choice. Don't wear so much stuff to where you're going to be sweating outside and you can't feel the cold. Find that sweet spot to where you know that it's cold outside, but you can still operate, right? And then I prefer and I recommend having a dry fit layer to pull moisture away from your body, so that garment can take away from any cotton absorbing that for you, and then wearing a layer over it. So if this video was information for you guys, leave a like. If it wasn't, leave a dislike, but let us know why, so we can improve the videos for you. If you want to check out our membership website, it is dropzonetactical.biz. We have our Pistol 1 course up there. You can also book courses for a discounted price. Any course that you want. Discounted price on there for our members only. So become a member. Appreciate you guys for joining this video and share with anybody you think would benefit. Remember guys, never get comfortable, even in the cold weather.